Oh, sure. And she lets me know. So you know what? I was just thinking about you today. Yeah. And then Chris goes sour.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. If you would please take your seat. Good evening and welcome to the 2018 Dallas Herring Lecture at NC State University. My name is Audrey Jager. I'm a professor in the College of Education and Executive Director of the Belk Center for Community College Leadership and Research. I would also like to welcome everyone who is joining us via live stream. We are grateful to our partners at EdNC who are helping us to connect to colleagues across the state, as well as in this room. So you'll see behind me some ways in which to engage, and we hope, and I'm going to give you a few seconds now to get out your phone, if you choose, but I'm going to wait till you do. To engage with us, we're going to be pushing out a couple questions central to the work that we're doing, which will give us an opportunity to get your feedback real time, but also questions that will be pushed out at the end of the lecture to get your thoughts as well. We note that the cell phone service in the Friday Institute can be difficult. So if your colleague sitting next to you gets the question and you don't take it personally. Just wave your phone around a little. Or you might get it tonight, perhaps, and we welcome your feedback at any time. Each year, NC State's College of Education hosts the Dallas Herring Lecture. Dallas Herring, whose transformative vision and tireless work culminated in the inception of the North Carolina Community Colleges. Dr. Herring conceived of and foresaw a community college system in this state that would prepare all students to achieve a fulfilling life. Instrumental to the success of this endeavor were hundreds of North Carolinians devoting years of their career to teaching their students how to master their crafts. Beyond this, though, Dr. Herring believed community colleges and those teaching at these institutions could and should cultivate students as individuals and as citizens. As Dr. Herring remarked in 1983, students pursuing and training for their futures at community colleges are citizens with immense potential for good, both in their careers and in our communities. We are honored to have Dr. Karen Stout, President and CEO of Achieving the Dream, to deliver this year's Dallas Herring Lecture. Dr. Stout and her colleagues at Achieving the Dream have championed the importance of dynamic teaching, coupled with holistic student support and sound policy to foster student success. We are also delighted to welcome Dr. Mary Rittling, President of Davidson County Community College, to deliver the official lecture response. A staunch advocate for effective teaching, Dr. Rittling is a champion for the involvement of faculty in the student success conversation. For decades, NC State has supported North Carolina's community colleges, and I'm pleased to say that today that support is even stronger. Earlier this year, the John M. Belk Endowment made the largest gift in the history of North Carolina State's College of Education to establish the Belk Center for Community College Leadership and Research. The Belk Endowment first invested in NC State in 2015, creating the opportunity for us to redesign our educational doctorate in community college leadership. Through the Belk Endowment's most recent investment, we at NC State are engaging presidents and other leaders in the community colleges as mentors, partners, collaborators, and thought partners in our ability to change the student success outcomes in North Carolina. We also are expanding our professional development to presidents and trustees to help them improve the student success outcomes. And finally, we are serving community college leaders through the Belk Center for undertaking action research that looks and seeks to solve problems of practice. We are fortunate tonight to have with us, via live stream, MC Belk Pylon, Board Chair of the John M. Belk Endowment, and Chuck Kaler, Chief of Staff. And with us, Virginia McElwain, Director of Strategic Initiatives, and Jen Bin, Grants Manager, are in the audience. MC and her colleagues are continuing Dallas Herring's vision for North Carolina through the Belk Endowment's investment into North Carolina and our state's community colleges. None of this would be possible without their unwavering belief in the power of community colleges and their leaders to restore mobility to many of our fellow North Carolinians. The endowment's choice to invest in North Carolina's future by investing in our state's community colleges is one we fully support and endorse. Thank you to our colleagues at the Belk Endowment, and I'd like to give them a hand. Joining us tonight is Chancellor Randy Woodson, whose leadership and vision empower NC State, continuing executing its mission as a land-grant institution to serve the citizens of North Carolina. Chancellor Woodson has generously supported our efforts through the years to support North Carolina's community colleges. We are grateful to Chancellor Woodson for his leadership in strengthening NC State's relationship with community colleges, and we thank him for being with us tonight. I welcome to the podium Chancellor Woodson to introduce this year's Dallas Herring speaker.
Good evening, everyone. Let me start by apologizing to you all because I have an interview candidate tonight that I've got to take to dinner, so I will be slipping out a little early. I've already apologized to Dr. Stout, but I'm here because Audrey said she needed me here, and I'll do anything for Professor Yeager because she constantly has me speaking to her classes, and I learn a lot more by engaging with the students than I ever give to those. MC, hello. Live streaming. We're so proud of our partnership with the Belk Endowment, and we're so grateful for what they're doing for NC State and through NC State for the community college leadership efforts across the great state of North Carolina. And let me just start by acknowledging that we're all here for the same purpose, and we all believe wholeheartedly in the transformative power of higher education. And we know that there's nothing more impactful to an individual or a family or a community than investing in the education of the citizens of our state and doing it beyond high school. And we want to be at NC State a great partner with the community colleges, not only through the leadership efforts, and we're so proud of the leadership across the state that has come through the doors of this great university, but also what we do through community college partnerships. And I'll highlight one that we're very proud of tonight. We call it the C3 program, which is our community college collaboration with 8 community colleges. And where's Dr. Gatewood? I'm going to have a shout out to LG later, but we have a great partnership not only with Alamance, but 7 other great community colleges within this region that we draw heavily from. And it's partnerships like this that do so much to empower young people's lives and move them to the point that they're looking for in their career. And we all know that one of the greatest challenges facing society is that people are entering higher education at different times in their life, from different vantage points, from different socioeconomic standings, and community colleges are such a critical part of that whole educational process. And as we also know, critical for the economic vitality of our state. I have the joy of working at a great research university that interacts with many companies across our state, all of which are looking for great talent, and all of which are trying to decide where they're going to be in America. And they always follow the talent. And so often that talent begins with community colleges. So I'm proud to be here with you tonight, and proud as a university to be at a place that seeks to partner with community colleges as well as we do. Also, before I introduce Dr. Stout, I never read my notes. And by the way, don't tell my staff that, because they do a great job writing all of this, and then I always ignore it. But before I get to introducing tonight's speaker, I want to give a personal congratulations to Dr. Gatewood for receiving, I want to get it right, the IE Ready Distinguished Leadership Award, or Leader Award. And we've had tremendous partnerships with Alamance for a number of years, but I've gotten to know Dr. Gatewood because of those partnerships, and I'm grateful for his leadership. We'll also hear, as Audrey said, a response to tonight's lecture, the Dallas Herring Lecture from Dr. Mary Ridling, the president of Davidson County Community College. And so, having said those things, let me introduce tonight's speaker. And it is a real pleasure to have such a distinguished leader with us tonight, Dr. Karen Stout, to deliver the 2018 Dallas Herring Lecture. Dr. Stout is the president, as you've heard earlier, the president and CEO of Achieving the Dream. And, you know, often I say this a bit tongue-in-cheek, and I said it earlier to some of my friends here. Someone comes up to you and says, "How are you doing?" I always say, "I'm living the dream." And it's a little bit of a joke because, you know, often life is not always a dream. But the reality is I am. And the reason I am is because I had a lot of people along the way help me achieve the dream. And it begins in high school, it begins with parents, it begins with mentors. And so Dr. Stout has been leading Achieving the Dream since 2015 and has transformed the organization into a national thought leader and service provider to our nation's great community college system. Before joining Achieving the Dream, she was the president of in Pennsylvania, the Montgomery County Community College System, one of the largest systems in our country, for 14 years, and she oversaw its transformation into one of our nation's highest performing community colleges. So please join me in welcoming to the podium Dr. Karen Stout. We're so glad.
Well, thank you. It's really an honor to be here tonight. It's amazing to see so many friends and colleagues in the audience. It's amazing and a bit daunting as well. It's especially important to me that I'm following three people who I greatly admire for their contributions to community college leadership in doing this lecture. Josh Weiner, Ken Ender, and Eduardo Padron. You know, as president of Achieving the Dream, I'm really proud of our strong partnership with North Carolina State University, and much of that partnership is linked by the visionary efforts of Bob Templin, a leader who we proudly share as a colleague. Bob is a founding member of the Achieving the Dream Board of Directors, serving as its chair from 2011 to 2018. And his leadership has bridged Achieving the Dream and this program, helping us to advise on some of the curriculum, specifically around data and analytics, but also in establishing North Carolina State University's Dream Fellows program, a program that will continue at our Dream Conference in 2019. We're very much at Achieving the Dream looking forward to working with you and the Aspen Institute through the generous support of the John M. Belk Endowment to build the supports that are really important for ensuring the ongoing success of the North Carolina Community College system, presidents and leaders throughout the system. I'm also honored to be here to deliver a lecture that really espouses the principles of Dallas Herring. His legacy is that of a champion of access to education for all, a visionary who saw the need to establish what has become North Carolina's community college system, and a believer in the power of educators and citizens to make a difference in the public welfare. So in reading the transcripts of Herring's interviews, it's revealed that he believed that educational improvement was local, born in his words, by the right of the local people to determine policy in education. Herring's belief in the power of our collective localness, an asset that we still must cultivate and leverage as community college leaders, was prescient. The challenges we face today as community college leaders are the same fundamental ones that have existed since the proliferation of technical and community colleges across the country during his era. A quote from a colleague, the Community College Research Center, really, I think, says the essence of our challenge. And the essence of our challenge really is in our mission itself. So Herring saw that our localness is what makes our sector unique and essential to accomplishing that larger purpose of improving the economic and social mobility of our students, and in turn, to strengthen our local communities and beyond. The organization that I lead, Achieving the Dream, was founded in 2004. It's amazing that we're soon going to be celebrating our 15th anniversary. I can remember as an early Achieving the Dream college when I was president at Montgomery, and we entered Achieving the Dream in 2006, people saying, oh, that's a fad, that'll be done in a couple of years. 15 years later, and I think you'll see in my remarks, this is not a fad, this is a movement. This is a movement that community colleges are leading across other sectors of higher education. We are kind of signaling the way for the reform movement of the entire higher education sector. But Achieving the Dream fundamentally believes that local, institutional-based transformation is really the essential component to scaled improvements in student success, outcomes, and completion across the country. That without local transformation, we won't reach our larger national goals. So to speak to the next generation of reform, and my call tonight to center teaching and learning in that next generation of redesign work, it's important to look back so we can go forward, to understand the reform movement through about 2015. And that reform movement addressed the challenge of low and inequitable student outcomes by making structural changes in how our community colleges operate. Admittedly now, on the margins of our work. So three movements or organizations shaped some of that early reform work. Achieving the Dream, founded in 2004, used these 5 founding principles to drive campus-based reform. And the focus on these principles helped our colleges set the stage for cultural transformation, primarily through the strategic use of data, and more specifically, requiring our colleges to disaggregate their data, their student success data, and to identify and address equity gaps for low-income students and students of color. Shortly after that beginning of Achieving the Dream, Completion by Design helped institutions organize their work around the student journey into and through our colleges using 4 organizing frameworks: connection, entry, progress, and completion. So 5 founding principles of ATD, 4 building blocks of completion by design, followed by the American Association for Community Colleges report, Reclaiming the American Dream, a report of the 21st Century Commission on the Future of Community Colleges, written in 2012 that outlined 3 R's for reimagining our work as community colleges. And those R's were redesigning students' educational experiences, reinventing institutional roles, and resetting of the system. That report amplified the work of our colleges in student success at a time, I think, when there was some skepticism about the work and effectiveness of Achieving the Dream and Completion by Design. So what's important about those 3 early reform efforts is that they gave leaders frameworks to use to begin to reorganize and reinvent their institutions to move forward some improvements in student outcomes. And we did see some improvements in student outcomes. But we now know, I think it's very clear, that our collective efforts have not yielded the desired results. By almost any measure as community colleges, we're still not meeting our goals, particularly for students of color and low-income students who make up most of the students at our nation's community colleges. And the data's familiar. Data from the National Student Clearinghouse show that fewer than 4 in 10 students who start in our institutions earn a credential within 6 years. Our students can't wait 6 years. we should throw that 6-year metric out. That I'm ad-libbing a little bit on, but completion rates for minority students still lag their white counterparts by 10% or more, and only 15% of our students who transfer to 4-year institutions earn a bachelor's degree within 6 years. So we're now in a stage of reforming our reforms. We've learned about what's working and what's not working. We have a better understanding of the imperative for more accelerated and scaled results. And we have new reform frameworks. The Aspen Institute College Excellence Program has emerged as a leading voice with its Aspen Prize, its groundbreaking leadership work, and its framework that's really guiding and anchoring a lot of the work here at North Carolina State University. The AACC Guided Pathways Framework has emerged on the shoulders of the learnings from Achieving the Dream, Completion by Design, and of course the Community College Research Center's book, Redesigning America's Community Colleges, which is probably on the shelf of just about everybody in this room. And at Achieving the Dream, our own R&D efforts have led us to evolve our 5 founding principles into 7 institutional capacities that we believe every institution needs to have in place in order to take on large-scale change that can be sustained and can be put in place with acceleration. So this is the institutional capacity framework, and I'll speak to that as I move forward. So these new approaches focus not just on structure, but on process, and they're mutually reinforceable. There's a collective energy in the reform space right now that didn't exist in the early days. But these efforts have lacked an explicit focus on improving teaching and learning as a primary lever for institutional transformation. You see teaching and learning up here, but it's not explicit, and I'll speak to that more. Our reform conversations center on everything but teaching, wrote Josh Weiner in his 2014 book, What Excellent Community Colleges Do. Dr. Gail Mello and colleagues in her aptly titled book, Taking College Teaching Seriously, Pedagogy Matters, she points out that attention to instruction is not routine, and that among the many investments we make as institutions, too little attention is paid to supporting faculty. If we're to put students at the center, excellent teaching and support for quality instruction has to be at the core of our reform work. The AACC Guided Pathways Framework, many of you are familiar with that, does include 4 priorities, one being ensuring that students are learning. It's the last of those priorities. Aspen Institute's framework includes learning among its 4 key outcomes. ATD's new capacity framework explicitly calls out teaching and learning. But even with this new attention, there's a limited focus on teaching itself, and more importantly, an understanding of what's required for institutions to build a culture of teaching and learning excellence. Creating greater urgency for teaching and learning and institutional reform is long overdue. Our faculty have always been and will always be the first and most frequent point of ongoing contact with our students. And yet we've left them behind in our reform work. In fact, it still remains, engaging faculty, a significant blind spot for us. Many college presidents are willing to leave matters of teaching and learning and pedagogy to provosts or academic departments because they're reluctant to be perceived as interfering with faculty autonomy. We're uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable even writing about teaching and learning as a lecture topic. It's uncomfortable, maybe even dangerous. Some of us lack experience in teaching, having entered leadership roles by climbing the rungs of administration. In my own case, I never had a course in pedagogy or curriculum design. I taught part-time for 15 years in several delivery modes, several different courses, In each case, I was handed a sample syllabus, rough learning outcomes, a textbook, and sent off to teach with little support. And that happened to me even as a college president while teaching. So improving teaching and learning is a big job to take on. And ATD's work in assessing improvement in nearly 200 of our institutions reveals that teaching and learning is among the areas where capacity is weakest across our network institutions. So we define teaching and learning in our framework primarily as the quote-unquote commitment to engaging full-time and part-time faculty in examinations of pedagogy, meaningful professional development, and a central role for them to play as change agents with the institution. So within the teaching and learning capacity area, colleges evaluate themselves around 5 dimensions in teaching and learning: instructional practices and support services, developmental education, structured program maps, professional development, and culture of evidence. Of the 12 questions that comprise the assessment of teaching and learning, you can see where colleges rank their capacity, and these are response rates where colleges can rank their capacity 1, 2, 3, 4. So above the red line is the percentage of respondents that ranked their capacity as 3 or 4. Below the red line is the percentage of respondents that ranked their capacity as 1 or 2. Now, we've administered this at 180 network colleges since September 2016, and we have about 100,000 individual responses that makes this up. But if you look at this slide, you can see that above the red line are structural changes. Below the red line, you're in the classroom. So we've essentially, case I'm making is we've avoided being in the classroom. We've done the easier work in the reform. So we have a lot to do to build a deep focus on pedagogy and to support our colleges in building a culture of teaching and learning excellence. How do we start? So I think there are 3 organizing principles and 5 building blocks for us as leaders to consider adopting to develop this culture of teaching and learning excellence that I believe is absolutely necessary to see the scaled, accelerated, and systemic results that our students and our communities require from us. So I'm a big fan of frameworks because I think leaders need frameworks in order to begin to figure out how to begin to take action. So I'm going to start with 3 principles. And these principles are built from some of the learning from ATD in the field over the last 15 years, specifically from some of our work recently with adjunct faculty and our work in open education resources. So the 3 principles. First, full-time and adjunct faculty are using inclusive, evidence-based instructional practices to foster student learning. Jesse Stommel, co-author of the book An Urgency of Teachers, The Work of Critical Pedagogy, just released last month. It's an excellent book. Puts it well. Teachers teach, pedagogues teach while also actively investigating teaching and learning. Too few of our community college faculty are pedagogues because we've not created conditions for reflective practice to thrive. When faculty investigate and bring inclusive pedagogical practices into the classroom, they help bring the student to the center. They lift their strengths and empower them to be more autonomous in their journeys as learners. This is where this work in being systemic about addressing equity fits. It reminds me of a quote in a book by Tanashi Coates, Between the World and Me, and he says this: "I was made for the library, not the classroom. The classroom was a jail of other people's interests. The library was open, unending, free." That's the kind of classroom that we can create with inclusive practices. Second, students are engaged as active learners in an accessible, empowering, personalized, and supportive academic climate. Inclusive pedagogy and emphasis on growth mindset alone are not sufficient to counter the growing needs that our students face outside the classroom, including food and housing insecurity. And faculty play important roles in identifying and connecting students to resources, but we cannot expect them to know how to take on new advising and coaching roles with students unless we change how we think about faculty-student interactions and provide the resources and tools necessary that they need to engage in this work. And third, institutions are creating an organizational culture that embraces professional learning for continuous improvement. This work involves engaging faculty at all levels in improving their practice, supported by structures like our teaching and learning centers, which have begun to take root on community college campuses but are underdeveloped. It also requires stepping back and looking at our overall strategic efforts in all areas to ensure that we are aligned with and support our efforts to improve teaching and learning, to create a culture of instructional excellence. So those are the 3 guiding principles. Now let's move to the 5 building blocks. First, leaders must adopt continuous improvement models to drive innovation in curriculum and pedagogy. I'm going to go back to Gail Mellow's book and what she calls a Pedagogy Matters practice improvement model. One that places faculty members, departments, and divisions at the center of a process focused on the design and refinement of inclusive pedagogical practices. Dr. Mellow writes, faculty want to, can, and should have the opportunity to improve their practice. We know from our work that pedagogy is critical to student success, and refinement of pedagogy requires that our institutions offer faculty time and continuous opportunities for reflection. And we know that this type of reflection is not common on our community college campuses. Instead, many of our colleges are like the one described by Sean Michael Morris, co-founder of the Digital Pedagogy Lab, and our colleges, he says, thrive in a culture of non-inquiry. So in a culture of teaching and learning excellence, leaders create an atmosphere of inquiry, and they make it safe for faculty members and departments and divisions to continuously assess their practice. And questions like this are common on campuses that are adopting continuous improvement reflective practice models. In fact, when you visit colleges like this, you can feel it when you talk to the faculty because they're constantly asking questions. An inquiry like this can be sparked through formal and informal structures. At Valencia College in Florida, in Josh Weiner's book, he talks about tenure projects that require faculty to design plans to change instruction based on the use of data. At Dr. Mellow's institution, LaGuardia, faculty are grouped into reflective learning circles. They're supported by coaches, and these groups develop lessons which are posted online for others to critique. And the Community College of Baltimore County's Culturally Responsive Teaching and Training Program challenges faculty and staff to examine assumptions about how they interact with one another and with students. These are formal, embedded, culture-changing practices. These efforts also work to open the doors and windows of the institution by getting data in the hands of faculty. At Pierce College in Washington, leaders focused on the democratization of data as a key, with faculty, as a key lever to their student success efforts. In fact, they increased 3-year completion rates from 19% to 35% with this practice. The college put real-time data on department, course, and instructor-level student success, broken down by demographic indicators, in the hands of each member of the faculty. Chancellor Michelle Johnson said the key to encouraging faculty to work with this new, often uncomfortable, granular level of data was for leaders to emphasize that the purpose of the data was for improvement, and offered safe spaces for faculty to examine their course design and pedagogy. The second building block. Leaders should invest in centers for teaching and learning and align the work with the center, from the centers with their broader student-centered mission and agenda. So at Achieving the Dream, we do an annual survey of our network colleges, and we found that about 2/3 of ATD colleges have centers. But as Andrea Beach and her colleagues reveal in their book, Faculty Development in the Age of Evidence, these centers are very under-resourced and understaffed. Well over half of the institutions said their budgets for their centers were less than $50,000. They're typically run by a single person. They're often led by faculty who are recognized as excellent teachers, but not trained in faculty development. The faculty are often on rotating assignments in and out of the centers. In short, the structure and support for the centers suggest that they're not central to the institution's student success strategy. And I would argue that we need to make these institutions central. So how can we structure teaching and learning centers to be more central to our work? First, the center's role in helping faculty teach better and become more reflective practitioners has to be recognized and supported. So we know that faculty members come to our campuses developed in their content areas, underdeveloped in the pedagogical skills required to teach them. As leaders, we can set the expectation that all faculty know how to use evidence-based teaching practices and frameworks for effective practice. To support that expectation, some of our institutions are turning to groups like the Association of College and University Educators, ACU. Is anybody partnering with ACU in the room? AVID for higher education. Anybody partnering with AVID? Okay. Faculty Guild to build capacity. Amarillo and Adeso colleges in Texas have worked with AVID to implement a series of high engagement strategies through professional development tailored for specific faculty groups, including all newly hired faculty and those teaching in math and science and developmental courses and career and technical education staff. So they have an intentional strategy about the faculty that they're using these partners with. Others like Davidson County Community College have taken on this work internally on developing a shared understanding of what teaching excellence means for the institution. So at Davidson, faculty, staff, and administrators, including the college president, perhaps it's not a coincidence that you're responding, Dr. Rittling, to the lecture, worked together over several months to develop a set of principles to guide that common understanding of teaching and learning. And once the principles were clearly articulated, Davidson used them as a guide to redesign all professional development efforts for faculty. Second, leaders can position the center as a unique agent for organizational change. So we can expand the focus from supporting individual faculty to activities that are scaled across faculty groups. Year-long faculty learning communities, study groups, departmental action teams, groups focused on program review, faculty involved in campus-based reform work like Achieving the Dream, all represent avenues to position the center as the first point of support for faculty and an avenue for broader influence. And I would suggest that presidents and provosts can reinforce this role of influence by placing center leaders at their leadership tables, giving teaching a prominent voice in larger institutional discussions. Many of our Achieving the Dream colleges have center directors, and they put their center directors on their ATD core team. That's the leadership team. But it's amazing how many times we go to institutions and the core team is absent, the leader for the Center for Teaching and Learning. That says something about the institution's point of view around teaching and learning being the lever for institutional change around student success. And third, leaders must ensure that inclusive pedagogical practices are extended to the center itself, so that diverse needs of all faculty, novice and experienced instructors, women, and faculty of color are met. This center can be a catalyst around our work in diversity, equity, and inclusion on our campuses that really needs to begin with our work with faculty. So back to the building blocks. The third, supporting faculty in approaching their work from the diverse set of lived experiences of their students. This is about helping our faculty to understand the students in their classrooms. It's amazing How many faculty, when you visit an Achieving the Dream campus, when they're new in Achieving the Dream, cannot tell you the demographic profile of the students that are in their classrooms? That know very little about the lived experience of their students in the classroom. That don't know that this was the journey that a student took, or often is taking, on their way into our colleges. Fragmented, a maze, disconnected courses, disconnected services, disconnected technologies that they have to navigate and find supports on their own. Given these realities, we need to transform our institutions to better meet the needs of our students. You can see that, and we're working on that. But we also have a lever with faculty. College faculty, as I said, have always been the main point of contact with our students. So if we can engage and support faculty in their role as a critical link between students and the services and supports they need to be successful, we'll be doing significant work. Our faculty are the ones who know our students the best. They're best positioned to intervene when a student is falling off track, but traditionally we have not provided them the structures, the processes, or professional development for them to fulfill this role. We give them a handbook in their orientation of all the supports, and then we walk away. We can do better work than that. Delta College in Michigan and Renton College in Washington are making great strides in creating online resources for faculty. They've created the early warning systems and supports along the way with lots of professional development in how to use the early warning systems. Many of our colleges have early warning systems in place. Faculty have not designed the early warning systems, nor are they engaged with the early warning systems. We can do better. The fourth, leaders must develop and invest in an explicit adjunct faculty engagement strategy. Now, this one's a challenging one because certainly economic realities have shaped our institutions and the way that we hire and deploy faculty. But I would submit that we have an obligation to support adjunct faculty and that they are also important in scaling our student success approaches. Some of the ways in which our institutions can do this involve structural changes, offering earlier course assignments, or providing adjuncts with a plan for the full academic year, or basic supports like office space, access to copying, and other services that full-time faculty have taken for granted. The Community College of Baltimore County has created centers for adjunct faculty engagement on their campuses. And those centers provide workspaces for adjunct faculty. They also provide access to computers and copiers, comfortable spaces to meet with students, and spaces for cohort-based professional development. But I would submit that the strongest lever for engaging adjunct faculty is to bring them more fully into the culture of teaching and learning. To that end, Harper College in Illinois has developed an adjunct faculty engagement model which intentionally addresses the professional isolation that adjuncts face. It brings adjuncts into the college's clearly defined community of practice model for professional development as participants and with training and support. And the college negotiated a promotion and compensation policy with its adjunct faculty union that recognizes and rewards adjunct faculty who participate in sustained professional development, that connects to classroom practice with additional pay, seniority, and the opportunity to interview for full-time positions. And the last building block, this is a quote from an adjunct faculty member that was part of our adjunct research study that we'll be releasing these findings in February. Some of the early findings were released by the Community College Research Center, our research partner, a few weeks ago. It's a really, really important piece if you haven't had a chance to read it. But this quote strikes me because it reminds me of a student. The adjunct faculty do know the student lived experience. They're an important lever in our change work. So now, fifth, I'd like to propose that we think about driving the design of a truly student-centered institution through teaching and learning. So what I've done with this sketch is I've taken Achieving the Dreams institutional capacity assessment model, and I've moved the student-focused culture that was in the middle of the model, and I've put teaching and learning in there, and I'm putting student-focused culture around the outside, just to help us think a little bit differently as leaders. What would our policies and practices look like if we centered teaching and learning in our redesign work? What would the strategic plan look like? What would our strategic financing look like? What would equity look like? What would data and technology look like? And I think that just trying to think a little bit about what that redesign could look like is very powerful. The alignment that would be required if we were to change our thinking would represent a heavy lift across many areas of our institutions and raise many questions for the future design of our colleges and the supports required for the evolving and more central role of faculty. But I think playing with this places teaching and learning in the central part of our thinking about a theory of change. Now, I speak a lot about leaders and doing this work, and I think we need, as institutions, strong foundational capacities. Leaders need frameworks to begin to figure out how to move forward change. But institutions that are really doing great work have leaders that are brave and bold enough to have an explicit, intentional, strategic theory of change. And I guess what I'm suggesting is that it's time for us, there's a moment for us in this reform work to put teaching and learning in the heart of that thinking about the lever for change, that it's long overdue. So if we take on these 5 building blocks, this work will not be easy. Creating the culture that's requires us to have new and deeper relationships and expectations for all the leaders on our campuses, our presidents, our chief academic officers, our academic deans, department chairs, division chairs, our individual faculty, full and part-time. In our work at ATD, we've found the institutional spark for systemic change to be in the middle with the academic deans and department chairs, and through the strategic connection of teaching and learning reforms with shared governance processes that value faculty voices and faculty leadership. So there can be a tendency and inflection points in any major educational reform movement to want to surface the next big idea for transformational change. There's a temptation to move past what we think of as old approaches in favor of bold action. I suggest that the bold action is right in front of us and is at the core of our being as community colleges. As our friend and colleague Eduardo Padron puts it, if we're to meet the challenges of learning in this time of change, teaching must be central to our success. We can no longer afford innovation on the margins or continuing working outside of and around our faculty and still expect to see greater and more equitable gains in learning and completion. New players are jumping into the vacuum we have created. A recent article in the Chronicle of Higher Education states, "It's game on for the business of improving faculty learning." No, really, for-profits see our pain point and are jumping in. One founder of a company focused on improving faculty learning said of colleges, they're either actively focusing on the classroom or they know they have to. So this represents an opportunity for us, but also a danger. Our faculty must be at the center and leading our instructional improvement efforts. We can't outsource our way to a solution on teaching quality. Tactical efforts to improve specific facets of instruction, either with strategic partners like the ones I mentioned earlier, or built internally by ourselves will only work if those are nested inside a strategically and intentionally built and nourished culture of teaching and learning excellence. And as I've outlined during these remarks, creating that culture isn't the result of one action, but built on 3 foundational principles with intentional and explicit efforts around the 5 building blocks. In this next generation of reform work, the big idea is not new and is not a magic bullet that offers to solve all of our problems. Instead, the big idea is the hard work required to place teaching and learning and the strategic and intentional building of a culture of instructional excellence in the center of our work. These changes will drive the sustained and scaled results our students and our communities need and deserve. It's up to all of us in this room to step up and focus forward to build the institutions capable of delivering on this promise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. I'm so appreciative of your very comprehensive, Bob called it earlier, thesis remarks, helping us think about this, but really very thoughtful and rigorous, and we are very much appreciate it, and would like to offer you a small token of our appreciation.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mary Rittling, and I'm the president of Davidson County Community College, and I'm proud and honored to offer a response to Karen's lecture this evening. Dr. Stout, you are recognized nationally as a community college advocate, a transformative leader, and a thought leader as well. Your remarks today affirms this well-deserved recognition, and thank you for sharing them with us. Your lecture entitled Focusing on the Next Generation of Community College Redesign on Teaching and Learning has invoked 3 feelings in me: reflection, action, and emotion. Building upon the historical foundations of the nation's community colleges and the philosophy of Dr. Dallas Herring, you have captured the essence of our mission, that education is a crucial driver for individual success and the health of a community. Throughout the decades, and most recently, the community college reforms conducted by Achieving the Dream, Completion by Design, the American Association of Community Colleges, and the Aspen Institute have been targeted on improving the educational outcomes for our citizens and our communities. However, as you have stated, by almost any measure, we are not meeting our goals, particularly for low-income students and students of color who make up most of the students at our nation's community colleges. This statement raises concern and brings into question what further work needs to be done. While structural changes in student success reform have occurred, Dr. Stout suggests a core element was missing: the engagement of the faculty. Dr. Stout contends that our conversations and our analysis and actions need to be holistic, with a focus on engaging all educational partners in the student success reform, particularly the faculty and their role in teaching and learning, and I support Dr. Stout's opinion. As an Achieving the Dream lead college, a Completion by Design college, and now part of Frontier Set, my college, Davidson County Community College, participated in a number of reform activities. These changes were systemic and structural, mostly geared on issues related to the onboarding of students, such as student placement, advising, redesign of developmental education. While we attempted to stay focused on the why these reforms should occur, to improve the outcomes of our students to earn a living wage and an opportunity for social mobility, how often, more than once, we focus more on the what and the how, on the management versus the why. Davidson's structural changes, as our key performance indicators did show, We made some impact, but we did not make enough. As we analyzed our work, missing in our conversations and in the implementation was the role and the focus of improving teaching and learning for our students from start to finish, engaging the faculty. This notion was reinforced when an Aspen team came to our campus and visited. It was time to step back with our efforts and regroup. This is what I believe Dr. Stout is suggesting. It's time to rethink and take action. As leaders, we know that there are some conversations on a campus that are more difficult to have than others. The changes and the actions needed to address teaching and learning will involve, as we know, our dear friend, Dr. Kay McClenny, says over and over again, will require courageous conversations. Dr. Stout has offered suggestions on the organizing principles for creating a culture of teaching and learning, the building blocks for instructional improvement, which include inclusive, evidence-based instructional practice, engaged students, an organizational structure built around continuous improvement. However, to institutionalize these initiatives, leadership is critical in building a culture of effective teaching and learning. Visionary leadership that embraces the why and executes through commitment and support, it is important to take note of Dr. Stout's words. College leaders need to empower faculty to lead changes in pedagogy, rethink and align course and program learning outcomes, build coherent and clear course and program sequences, and engage in engagement and advising in various ways. If we believe in the mission of our colleges, as leaders, this is our responsibility. Leaders are being asked to lead with new and compelling vision, to address today and in the future transformational change, to close the equity gaps and ensure that our students and our campuses are ready for the next generation. As a college president, I have grown professionally and I have been humbled by the work of our faculty and my academic team who's here tonight. They have done an excellent job at Davidson defining what is excellent teaching at our institution. They have developed and adopted guiding principles that are intended to inspire teaching and learning. These principles are effective teaching centers on facilitating student learning to meet the requirements of a global changing economy. Effective teaching is inspirational, providing clear expectations for our students, their learning goals, their course policies, and their assignments. Effective teaching encourages students to engage in critical thinking, reflective reasoning, problem solving, collaboration, and application. Effective teaching helps students understand how course content is relevant to them and their community throughout their lives, preparing students for enhanced careers and educational opportunities. Effective teaching fosters collegial and dynamic process in which the faculty share and learn strategies and approaches focused on improving student learning. Effective teaching infuses a culture of assessment of student learning into an instructional environment to inform improvements in curriculum, pedagogy, resources, and student success. In addition, they have developed a Center for Teaching and Learning. It's in its novice stages, and it is a collective effort on our campus. Their vision, the faculty believe, is to continually strive for excellence in teaching as outlined by the guiding principles. Their holistic approach involves faculty onboarding to ensure the incorporation of the guiding principles in the faculty experience, from the job posting to new faculty orientation. Faculty professional learning focused on developing programs for professional learning encompassing the guiding principles. Outcomes assessment, improving the culture of inquiry and the impact of teaching on student success and faculty progress, assessing their evaluation, their own performance using the teaching principles. It is now evident to me that while it was in many ways easier to address the tasks and the processes a student-centric organization would take on, today we must look at the heart of our institutions, and the heart of the institution is the classroom. Teaching that is dynamic and relevant, engaging and connected to both the academic and the non-academic needs of our students will impact student learning outcomes, success, and social mobility. This is necessary, and it is very hard work. I began my comments by saying that, Dr. Stout, you invoked reflection, action, and emotion. Truly, you have caused me, and I know many of us in this room, to rethink our processes and how important the faculty is, to reframe our agenda on our campus, to see teaching and learning is a concept that should not be viewed as an initiative, rather as the central component of our work. That action is required, action that is progressive, risk-taking, supports our faculty, our entire campus, engages partners that are both national organizations and associations, as well as seek and provide resources. Finally, the emotion. I share Dr. Stout's opinion that there is an urgency and a concern. I'll be bold enough to say that I think there is a moral imperative. These changes are not for us, they are for our students, to have a holistic educational experience that provides opportunity and a quality of life. In return, our communities will prosper. That is what I know we all believe in, and what Dr. Dallas Herring's vision was for the North Carolina Community College system. Again, my appreciation, Dr. Stout. Your insights will guide us in our continuing work to create a culture of institutional excellence committed to student success and continuous improvement. Thank you.
I just want to say, wow. Thank you, Karen, and thank you, Mary, for being with us tonight, and for the thoughtfulness of your words, the knowledge that you bring to us, and the fact that you both possess the real qualities of having a belief, being wise, and then taking on the bold challenge of implementing. So just a couple of thoughts that I have to what you said, because the emotion is very much a part of it as well for me. And I think that what we heard were really calling us to ask some very hard questions. And it's not only the talk about what should be done, but what are some possible answers? And so I'm left with the thought, one of the slides that you had put up, Karen, that is associated with what Eduardo Patron talked with us about last year. And that is, if we are to meet the challenges of learning in this time of change, teaching must be central to our success. And it takes us back, I think, to the concept of community within a college, because we're talking about investing in our faculty for them to develop, and then investing in our students. And so I think, what will it take to put teaching and learning at the center of our capacity to build those efforts? But most importantly, how can we afford not to do that? So thank you very much. Now, it is my privilege to present the I.E. Reedy Award. And this award, as you know, honors the memory and legacy of Dr. I.E. Reedy, who envisioned and worked toward a community college system that would provide a total education to students and expand their educational opportunities. Each year, we present the award to a graduate of our community college program who envisions Dr. Reedy's, who carries out Dr. Reedy's vision and demonstrates exceptional leadership. This year's recipient, as you know, is Dr. Algie Gatewood, President of Alamance Community College. I would ask Dr. Gatewood to please come forward. I have a few more things to say, but I want you to have an opportunity to stand up here for a while. So Dr. Gatewood has been president of Alamance Community College, and I want to highlight this since 2013. Prior to that, he served for almost 10 years as president of Portland Community College, Cascade campus, and has had a distinguished career prior to that in North Carolina in many ways. But since his time at Alamance, he has continuously realigned the community college to meet the needs of the students and the region, and in a short period of time has built remarkable, trusting, and strong partnerships. He has brought not only a vision, but also, I would say, he is a leader who's a change agent moving 110 miles an hour. I had to go back and check that you really have only been at Alamance for 5 years, because in that period of time, he's launched more than 24 new degree and certificate programs. So I can't imagine what it's like to be a faculty member there, Algie. Secured $56 million in capital funding and achieved the largest enrollment percentage increase among our community colleges in North Carolina in 2015 and 16. He also introduced the early college to Alamance and facilitated many transfer agreements, as Chancellor Woodson mentioned. But in terms of building trust and building a foundation for the future of Alamance, what I think is most remarkable is that earlier this month, Alamance Community College won its largest ever bond referendum, nearly $40 million, and it did so by the largest vote margin in the college's history. That is remarkable. So there is much more to say, but I want to leave that to you, Algie. And I just want to say that to us at NC State, you are an exemplary leader who sets high expectations for all of us, but we know every day makes an impact of changing the lives and opportunities for folks in Alamance community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's now your turn.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Danowitz. This is a tremendous honor and privilege for me. When I think about the work of Dr. I.E. Reedy, I think about access. I think about student success. I think about making our state and our nation and our world better places. I'm also reminded of how that access provides opportunities for students who may not otherwise have an education at the higher education level. I think about the fact that college was not always one of my goals, but there were people who, as Thurgood Marshall would say, helped to pull me up by my bootstraps. I didn't do it alone. And I think that's part of what we do as educators every day. We help people to pull up their bootstraps and their boots. I'm also reminded of my mother, who always insisted that I should, as she put it, make something out of myself. Well, Mom, I hope you're watching. I'm reminded of the time when I started at Livingstone College and how there were people there who helped me along the way, who pushed and pulled to ensure that I was successful. I reflect on my time here at North Carolina State University and how Dr. Ben Fountain, who was one of the earlier presidents of this system here in this state, North Carolina Community College system, how Dr. Ed Boone and Dr. George A. Baker III insisted that I would get through the graduate program here. And I'd like to thank each of you in this room for what you do. I could not be successful without my faculty and staff. I have some faculty here, one faculty member who happens to be the chairman of the faculty committee on campus. So Deborah McCusker, look out, we have a lot more work to do. And some members of my cabinet. I want to extend a special thanks to my family, my son Algie Jr., who's here. Algie, raise your hand, please. Okay? And next to him is my sister, Olivia, and Algie's significant other, Crystal. And of course, on the front row is my wife, Rosalind. Please raise your hand. This is special because I'm away from home a lot, and I've been away from home a lot over the years and working like crazy, trying to do the work that I was supposed to do to help move not only Alamance Community College, but a college on the West Coast, and as was indicated earlier, other work that I've done here in the state forward. So to be given this honor again is a tremendous, tremendous accomplishment for me, and I feel just indebted to each of you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I would now like to welcome to the podium Dr. Tori Bowles, Associate Professor in the College of Education, and Dr. Bowles will present to graduate students our two distinguished awards, the Boone Award and the Kabbalah Fellowship Award. Please come forward.
Excellent. Given that we have few awards to recognize and support graduate students studying problems of practice in community colleges, this is a very special moment for our program area faculty and adult workforce and continuing professional education. We owe our sincerest gratitude to many of you in the audience this evening for your special donations and the establishment of generous endowments. I am deeply honored and gratified to present 4 of our most distinguished awards this evening. So we moved from 2 to 4, Dean Danowitz. Our first award is the Edgar J. and Ethel B. Boone Adult and Community College Leadership Award. It sponsors the professional and scholarly development of promising leaders. The recipient receives a monetary award and is guided by both a faculty mentor and a mentor of practice throughout their studies. Please join me in welcoming this year's recipient, Jonathan Loss. Our second award is the Thomas R. and Dorothy E. Kabbalah Fellowship. It provides support for adult and community college education students who have the skills and motivation for helping advance the well-being and flourishing of individuals and communities. Please join me in recognizing this year's recipient, Susan Burleson. Our third endowed fellowship was established in honor of former faculty members in the College of Education. As many alums from way back may recall, Dr. Conrad Glass worked tirelessly in our department to support and nurture graduate students. So this award, this fellowship is named the Norman Anderson J. Conrad Glass Fellowship. Please join me in recognizing Alan Youngman. Our final award is the Scott Community College Fellowship. This award supports graduate students during the final phases of their dissertation processes, when they have to make it over the hump of data collection, analyses, and the write-up parts. So, and it's interesting because this year's recipient is one of my advisees, and I'm delighted to recognize her, and I would like for you to join us in recognizing Miss Joyce Valentine, soon to be Dr. Joyce Valentine. So, as you should know, our College of Education is committed at NC State to preparing professionals who educate and lead, and we are thankful for all of the alumni and friends who partner with us to support our students. All right. And I must say, it is our dean who went out there with her tin cup to raise the monies for these extra awards. So, Dean Danowitz.
I didn't bring my tin cup with me, but I do have a plastic cup out there, so feel free. I want to thank you for joining us this evening. It's been a wonderful event. I think it's been incredibly stimulating and I would say provocative in terms of the comments, and in many ways a call to action. So, but the next move is an easy one, and you are invited into the outer area for reception and to celebrate tonight. So thank you very much. I'm sorry. I left one incredibly important point out of this, and that is, as I'm not following the chancellor, who often goes off script, but I want to say that there are many people behind tonight's event, and I want to thank all the team in terms of the graduate students and folks who have been involved, and I'd like to ask those to please stand to be recognized. You would? The whole. And especially Alicia Keating-Polson, who was behind all the details. And I think that Andrea DeSantis is here, Roxanne D'Souza, Keith Robinson, and Samita King. And we also had tremendous support from our marketing communications team, which you will be seeing and receiving more information about tonight from. And lastly, I think what you saw tonight is what I hope is a testimony and a further bond to the partnership we are attempting to further cultivate and sustain with our community college folks from mountains to the coast. I believe we are at a point of a new era in terms of the relationship between the community college and NC State and the community college system. And I really want to reaffirm what the chancellor said. I can't imagine having anyone who is more committed to the words that he shared with you tonight. And so the college will do its best in terms of executive development, applied research, and graduate training. So thank you for heeding my request to come back. I hope you will remember those words and now go out and have fun. Thank you.